This is Your Crisis Coach with Scott H. Silverman and Fred Carroll. Honest talk. For real issues with real solutions, where we talk about the hard to talk about. Here is your host, Fred Carroll.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Your Crisis Coach with Scott H. Silverman, in my screen, the middle balding gentleman, elderly, older. Looks nice and warm out there in San Diego, California, while I freeze to death here in Connecticut. But that's neither here nor there. I'm Fred Carroll. How are you, Mr. Scott?
I'm well, Fred. We did a blanket collection for you over the weekend. The homeless are getting rid of their blankets now. It's starting to warm up. So let me know when you're ready. We'll ship them back to you and you can warm yourself up. Doing well, Fred. I'm looking forward to 2026, man. I'm so excited about this year. And whenever I'm feeling bad, I turn on the news and I just start to smile. I'm not in DC and I'm not part of that mess. And it's interesting. The phone's a little quieter this year than it was last year. I think people are, I think they're just trying to figure out a way, and they'll come around. It used to be starting in January, with was it 80% of the people that start their diets pretty much to terminate them at the end of January. So February's here, and I think we're going to see a lot more people, and we're having a great response with the veterans in our community, and we're pushing active duty. And we're going back to law enforcement, which is exciting because 25% of law enforcement are veterans. So hopefully business will be picking up, and the family's doing good, and they remember who I am and take my calls now that I've physically threatened them with cutting them off with the family plan. And I'm excited about our guest. I saw the email traffic, Jeff. You were saying you're excited, and I'm thinking, wow.
Yeah, we don't get that often.
No, I'm hoping he's an ex-tweaker because that would make sense, and we'd have some sort of real. And by the way, day after tomorrow, I'm speaking to a pharmaceutical class here at one of our local universities, the UC system. And you may not have read, Jeff, but I'm a retired unlicensed pharmacist. So I bring something to the table whenever I talk to the pharmacy students. I do this every year for about an hour and Zoom in. It's exciting. So I'm doing that this week, part of my service work and giving back and sharing. So that's it for me, Fred. How are things with you?
I'm good. We got my Patriots in the Super Bowl, so that makes me warmer than I should be. But it's been like 4 degrees, and Jeff lives local to me, and he could attest. It has been 10 to 14 days of consistent under 10 degrees and as low as minus 10. I mean,
so how do you move around? How do you get supplies? I mean,
it's all, first of all, we know how to drive in this. So that's not a problem. We're adapted to it. It's just.
So do you wait for like the warmest part of the day when it, jumps up to 0 degrees?
No, you go out and you try. Listen, the other day, my gutters on my house are frozen so that you could literally see the ice 6 inches above the gutter. And it's causing this house a few issues because I'm hearing all the creaking and the cracking. My house is over 100 years old. It's not built for this type of stuff. So I went up on the roof the other day, but I quickly came down the ladder. Because as I was up there, I kind of saw my death. It was about to happen. It was not comfortable. It's a sheet of ice, the roof. There was no way I was climbing on it. It was going to be impossible.
What were you going on the roof when it's that cold anyway?
Trying to clear the ice out of the gutters. So when the meltdown comes off the roof, it's got somewhere to go, or it's going to go into the wood. So it's
come back in the house to get ice damming, and
it's becoming it. But that's neither here nor there. Who cares? Nobody. Don't pretend you care now, Scott, about my being cold and chilly.
To be honest, I don't care. I'm empathetic. It's interesting. I grew up in Southern California. So I remember in junior high school, it snowed flakes, and they closed the school for 3 days because they were fearful people would drive in it. I don't. When you talk about it, it's so scary to think about.
Right. It's like it brings you back to your little house on the prairie days, and the one school You and Laura Ingalls going to the prom. I know. I remember.
Well, I do have a daughter in New York, so I talk to her. I go, "How you doing?" She says, "So cold, so cold." I said, "Well, we'll turn the heat on." She goes, "The heat's on, and it's still cold."
It's impossible. So today we got a guest. We got my friend Jeff Givner, who is somebody I've known, haven't seen in quite a while, but someone I knew in the past that was and still is, I assume, a great father who coached his son playing baseball, and that's where we met. I was coaching also, and he was a good husband. We'll get into that because apparently that's not true any longer. And we'll get into that, but I want to welcome him. So, Jeff, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me. I'm very passionate about this topic and mental health and addiction, so I look forward to this opportunity to talking about it and catching up. Fred was always a good guy to coach with and made it a lot of fun. His girlfriend's son, Will, and my son were like best of friends, and I look back now that my son's an adult, I miss those days. I was pulling out some old pictures of Will and Kyle when they were little and reminiscing a bit about those days.
Yeah, Will's not so little any longer.
No, I know.
He's about 6'4", about 220, something like that. He's a big boy. He's a senior in college, and he's doing well.
Wow.
So tell us, to move into what you're here for is, what is your story? What was the catalyst that drove you into going to college and stuff?
Well, short story is growing up, all I wanted to be was a fireman. So I found this program at University of New Haven in Connecticut. They had a fire science program, and I could basically join right out of high school, which I did. And I could go to school during the week, be a college kid, go work my shifts on the weekend as a fireman. I loved it. So I was going to college, living that life, partying my ass off. Addiction runs in my family. My father's an alcoholic. A lot of my uncles, aunts and uncles. So alcohol addiction was just kind of normal. And, for me, I was in my early 20s and stuff like this is what you're supposed to. You're supposed to party, but I was partying at an Olympic level back then. And then I actually got injured. I injured my back and the firefighter career ended. And I had just met my now ex-wife and got sober for her. And I was in love, and she was in school to be educated, and she didn't want a guy that was out drinking and doing drugs and stuff like that. So I got sober. We got married, and I lived a little suburban life, found a new career. I bounced around doing a bunch of little, as a CVS manager, and I worked as a PI for a little bit, and worked a couple wholesale businesses, and then I kind of fell into the alcohol business by accident. And, high school and college, I did some time working in bars and restaurants, so I knew the business, and I lived that little perfect suburban life, the house, the kid, the wife, the dog, everything. Coached baseball, and my dad being an alcoholic and not having him really in my life, he was physically present, but not emotionally present. My whole thing is I wanted to be a good dad. So now I understand that my addictive nature, fatherhood was my addiction. I threw everything. My son was my life. Coaching him, room parent volunteer. I even worked my career so I could pick him up from school. I could work from home on his days off. Spent a lot of time with him. And now it's paid off. We're like best of friends, and he's a great kid. He's a great adult. And then I lived the life. I thought everything was perfect. And then until it wasn't. COVID hit. My wife and I weren't communicating. We weren't getting along. People interfered in the marriage, and we grew apart. And I got stuck in my own depression, some trauma and stuff from my childhood and my career as a firefighter started taking over my brain. I lost my grandmother, who I was very close to during COVID, and I had to watch her die through a glass door. And just depression, anxiety, PTSD all kind of kicked in, and I didn't know how to cope. No one taught me coping skills. Blue collar New Englander, stuff it down, go back to work. Support your family. Smile, pretend everything's okay. And I didn't drink. All those years I was a dad. After I met my wife, I wasn't a drinker. Smoked pot once in a while. And it was literally just picking up some take-home on a Friday night. We were still together. My wife took this job in Massachusetts. She was commuting. It was a good promotion. It was for the family. And when Kyle finished high school, I was gonna move up to Massachusetts. We were gonna start over. Didn't see the handwriting on the wall there. Coming home to an empty house was miserable. Stopped at this pub on the way home. I used to pick up takeout. I knew the bar manager. And instead of getting my Coke and waiting for my takeout, I looked down. There was a glass of scotch in front of me, and picked it up. One led to two, led to three. All that pain, all that depression, all that anxiety all went away. And in my head, I was like, well, I'm an adult now. I can handle this. It's no big deal. One night off, but no big deal. And I was at the liquor store the next morning. And that began like a 2.5-year run. I hit it really well until I couldn't anymore. And of course, with me, alcohol led to cocaine, which they always went hand in hand in my younger days. And working in the around restaurants, it was always easy to get. And I thought I was doing okay. Bills were paid, food's on the table. My son was off at trying college for his freshman year. He finished high school, and addiction just took over. And I was just like, I'm going to stop tomorrow. I'm going to stop next week. Just get to this weekend. Just get to this one thing. And then, unfortunately, my biggest failure as a father is the night I got some Coke. I got a couple balls of scotch. On a Friday night, was going to have a nice weekend. And little did I know the Coke was laced with fentanyl. At that time, didn't even know what fentanyl was. And my son was coming home for the weekend, and he found me overdosed and saved my life. Called an ambulance. Went to the hospital, and then that started a 2 to 3 week back and forth until I finally got into proper treatment. And then went to treatment, and then just really threw myself. I figured if I was going to do this right, having watched uncles drink themselves to death and everything, I was going to have to put as much energy into my sobriety as I did into my addiction. And it just kind of took off from there. And I met some great people at the treatment center I was at, and we were doing these kind of voluntary men's groups in the IOP I was in. And the guy that ran the facility was like, you'd be really good doing this, running groups and working with people. You should think about going back to school or something. And then I was in treatment in Massachusetts. I came back to Connecticut and just started doing research, found a program at Gateway College, which is an amazing program in alcohol studies and counseling. And that's what I've been doing since. And I'm a proud member of AA and doing service work. And I speak at events, Zoom meetings. Anyone who wants to listen, anyone who wants to give the sobriety, I'm there to make it happen.
Excellent. Scott, what do you got to add to this? Same story, huh?
Yeah, I resemble all of your remarks. I want to ask you, Jeff, because I hear from families a lot when they say, how come, I'll give you a quick example. This mother called me about her youngest daughter, and she said, I have 4 children. All 3 of them have had issues with addiction. Why wouldn't my daughter have learned from them what not to do? And I tried to explain to her that, if it was diabetes, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. It's in the family. She was maybe predisposed. So question for you is, watching your dad, and by the way, thanks for sharing your story. I appreciate that. And I think people need to hear that it can happen to anybody. It's not zip code specific.
No.
A disease does not discriminate. My brain's wired in a certain way, and nothing I could do about it. And there was 4 kids in my family, and I was the black sheep, and I was the addict. But when you saw your dad doing what you're doing, when you started to, I use like the word anesthetize myself, what was it? Did you see that commonality or that thread, or did you say to yourself, like my mom was a smoker growing up, and I hated it when she smoked, and I smoke cigars now, and I picked up cigarettes when I got sober. So how did you see it at all? Was there some sort of like?
No, it was total ego. I have a very high IQ. I got tested in high school. My grandmother was a member of Mensa. I read research papers for fun. I love to read, and I just thought I was smarter than the disease.
So did you think you had the disease since your dad had it, or did you think that you could manage it?
I knew I had addictive nature. I knew when I did something, it was full bore 100%. Like when Forged and Fire, the TV show, came out, and I was like, I can do that. It wasn't just build a little forge, make some knives as a hobby. It's like a wall full of knives. When I really got into cooking and stuff like that, I had to have all the equipment, all the knives, and it was cooking gourmet meals every night. My nature is 100% full blast.
So does the word moderation irritate you like it does me?
Yeah.
People say, can't you just moderate yourself? Can't you just, keep a slower pace? And I'm like, no.
It's taken a lot of practice, a lot of meditation practice and therapy to get to a point of less extreme. I wouldn't call it moderation, but I'm better,
Managed. You've got it managed now differently.
Yeah, I got it managed to, and I try to steer my addiction into healthier things. Like even in sobriety, I work at a therapeutic shelter. It was my internship. I work as a recovery coach. I do service work for AA and NA, Smart Recovery, Dharma Recovery. Plus, that's on top of my own recovery. So I'm addicted to sobriety. I'm addicted to recovery in a way. But I know that's what it's going to take me. I had a client, I brought this up today at group this morning, and, I'll get those clients that have been in and out of the system a few times. They've done the rinse and spins, the 28 days, inpatients, outpatients, and what is it going to take for me to stay sober, have long-term sobriety? And I said, I'll tell you the secret. And there is a secret. Here's the secret. Everything always. That's what it takes. It takes everything you can throw at this disease, always. Just like you said, if you're diabetic. Diabetic doesn't I had a great day, I'm going to eat a chocolate cake tonight. That's going to kill them. They have to constantly, every day, they can't take a day off from monitoring their blood sugar. They can't take a day off from carrying their insulin and being careful what they eat. It's the same with addiction. Every day, I have to practice everything possible towards this disease. Because no matter how much time I got under my belt, how much work I do, I'm one decision away from going right back to where I was. Because I know me. My motto in my younger days, and even when I relapsed, was an open bottle was an empty bottle. So I know I can't 10 years from now, I can have one drink at my son's wedding. No. Because that it's not going to be one drink. It's going to be 100 drinks, and then it's going to be an 8-ball, and then it's going to be my funeral.
So what would you tell people who are maybe meeting you for the first time? What would you tell them resonates the most with you about the transition or transformation or the experience you had going from being under the influence, thinking you had control, and now in your journey of sobriety or recovery? What would you tell people? What would you want them to know that, had you heard it, might have helped you get help sooner or reevaluate where you're at? Or, I'm assuming you needed to do what you needed to do because one size doesn't fit all. And when you were ready, and sounds like that overdose probably scared the poop out of you. But for, most addicts, it's well, now with Narcan, I can take fentanyl, and if I can't carry it, I'll have my friends carry it. But finally, the cartels have made a decision that their level of toxicity of the fentanyl is too high. So they're lowering the dose. So we're not seeing the overdoses we used to see. Plus, people have access to naloxone and Narcan, if you will.
Yeah.
But what would you tell people? What would you want people to know that, and if 100 people hear you, maybe one would go, I'm going to call that guy, or I'm going to call Fred and see if I can get a hold of Scott to give me Jeff's number. I want to hear that again. What would you tell him?
I owe it to my first mentor, Boston George. He worked at Emory Recovery Center in Massachusetts. He's a clinical supervisor there. Really cool guy. Totally meets the clients at their level. And I'm coming in there right out of detox. I got to move away from home. I'm living in a sober house. I got to be away from my son, who's just found his father overdosed. And he looked me dead in the eyes and he said two things. There's no such thing as hopeless, and you matter. And it had been such a long time for someone honestly gave a shit about me, or I felt like someone gave a shit about me. And someone said to me, you matter. Your life matters. And it had been such a long time before anyone made me feel like that. And this is a man that literally just meets me. I'm doing my intake, and I meet this clinical supervisor, and I walk right into a group. I think I'm wearing the same sweatpants and hoodie for 3 days now. And I hadn't even gotten to my sober house yet. I got a bag with a couple of changes of clothes, nothing else literally on me. And I feel like bottom of the bottoms. And this man is just you matter. And that made the world of difference to me. And that's one of the first things when I meet a new client, new recovery coaching client, you matter. And you're not hopeless. There's no such thing as hopeless.
What's that feel like to matter?
That's a great question. I can't say it fills the hole you feel in your sometimes, but in a way it does. It kind of just does. It kind of fills out some of the emptiness you often feel. One of the commonalities when you talk to people in addiction, regardless of their backstory or how they got there, there's always that feeling of emptiness, of loneliness, of isolation, of that they don't mean anything to anybody. No one cares. And when you tell them, I do care, people do care. It's a game changer. It's a life changer. And then in the work I've been doing, and it's, I won a scholarship, I won a fellowship, I got a couple of awards and stuff like that. And it's just like, it just reinforces that I'm doing the right thing and that I do matter. And, I was raised mostly by my grandfather. He passed away when I was 15, and he was a very strong, positive male influence that I had, thank God, because my life would have been so much worse without him in my life. And, big, tall World War II vet, and, came over here at a very young age. Father died, had to support 9 siblings, and just a old school hard guy. And he's like, the measure of a man is at night when you put your pillow on your head. 2 things. Did you try to be a better man today than you were yesterday? And did you try to help someone today? And every day, that's the same 2 things I ask myself every night.
I think you meant to say, put your head on a pillow. I like the way you said, put your pillow on your. For some reason, that was very soothing, because that's sometimes what I do.
Jeez. So one thing I want to, and I'm just going off the interview that I saw you on, which, quite honestly, did shock me. I won't lie, and I'm sure it shocked other people. I didn't see this person. I didn't see Jeff as an addict in any way. I was unaware of, we weren't close like that, but I mean, I was at parties at your house, birthday parties, children's birthday parties, and so I just saw you as a good dad, good husband. But one thing I see in common, I believe, based off your interview, one thing in common, Scott has the same thing, is good women in your life. Regardless of her being your ex-wife, you spoke about she supported you through this as your ex-wife.
She's supporting me now. We are amicable. We are in a good spot in our relationship. We stopped communicating. We got together very young, and it wasn't even a situation like, people are like, you grew apart. No, we didn't grow apart. We still have the same goals and values. We stopped communicating, and we started resenting each other. She was achieving in her career. I was basically staying home, taking care of the house and Kyle, and putting my career on hold. And I didn't realize I was doing this, but I was resenting her. She was resenting me kind of not growing as a person. And we frankly just stopped communicating. And when you stop communicating, it's the death of any marriage. It doesn't matter. Everything else aside, everything else that happens, it's the death of a marriage. Honestly, I love her to death. I truly believe she's the love of my life. She will always be the love of my life. She's given me a great life. She gave me my son, some great times. And it's just, our relationship is so much better now than it was like the last 5 or 6 years of our marriage. And actually, technically, we're still married. We're both in a place where, like, we still share finances to a point. Like, we've separated everything, but, like, we're still connected. And we have some financial interests and investments together. And I help her with her consulting business. And she'll bounce ideas off me and stuff like that when we'll talk. And we're living separately, but we do still spend time together and as friends. And it works for us. Both of our respective therapists are like, I don't know if this is healthy or unhealthy, but it's working for you.
Yeah. And listen, Scott and I deal with this. I mean, we've been together now 6 years doing this show. So we've talked to a lot of people, from addicts to experts, to every spectrum of addiction and mental health. And one thing we've learned is it may not sound like the right way, but if it's working, we're okay with it. And it's the same way we discuss microdosing, for instance. We brought that up in the past, and it's not necessarily our go-to, but it works for some people. And if it's what is working, it's working. We're fine with that, because our goal is to save one person every show, and hopefully 100, but one is enough. And that's how we move. So now that you're in school, and what is your final goal here? What is your goal?
People ask that a lot of me, and I have a goal and I have a dream. My goal is I want a business card where all those letters are wrapped around. I want all the letters. LADC, LPC, I want all the letters after my name. Not necessarily PhD. I'm not interested in the doctorate, but I do, right now, I do a lot of extra training. I'm working on getting certified in treating gambling disorder, suicide prevention and identification, any kind of certification, ASAM certifications, I jump on board. Any kind of conference I can get to, any kind of lectures I can get to, I jump in. And I want to know as much about this disease as possible and help as many people as possible. I want to change the stigma around mental health and addiction. A lot of those are my goals. My dream would be unlimited resources. My dream would be have like an IOP program for kids going into high school, mandatory, like a summer camp where you have like an IOP where you're teaching them about drugs, alcohol, coping skills, learning about cognitive distortions, emotional regulation, self-esteem, sexually transmitted diseases, relationships. A lot of the stuff we teach in psychoeducation, we teach in IOPs with addiction, but expand that and make this mandatory. And without these lost children going into high school, bombarded with the world around them and just instant access to pornography and drugs and everything else on their phones and having stuff we never learned growing up. I'm Generation X, the self-taught generation. We learned it by doing it and made a lot of mistakes. And my dream would be to take the kind of addiction model of treatment, the matrix model of education and therapy, and kind of develop this program almost as a preventative. You guys know who Chris Herron is? Awesome guy. I brought him into school last year to speak. I've spoken to him numerous times. He's a big believer in preventative medicine, especially in addiction and mental health, getting kids young and teaching them the coping skills and emotional regulation and boundaries and stuff like that, prevents a lot of these problems. Yeah, we can treat addiction after you've burned your life down, but wouldn't it be so great if we could treat that addiction before, the bridge is on fire, before the house is on fire? That's a dream, but it's the reality of it is that in this country, I don't think that would ever happen. But it's definitely a dream, and if I had that resources, I would try to make that happen.
We've had a guest on here, Rocky, that is a former DEA agent, and he speaks at schools, and he's talked to probably close to 250,000 kids, kind of like Chris. And he's a firm believer in education and prevention. I'm on the treatment side of it, but I'm also into education and prevention. I think it's really critical. And what's happening to a kid at 15 years ago didn't happen to a kid until they were in their 20s. So we're seeing that people are hooking onto that compulsive, obsessive, addictive behavior much earlier in life today, even though they've had examples of family members who have had catastrophic events, because it's not really something you learn from example. It's unfortunate the example you learn from can be one that can cause you to need that resource to get help and to understand. And the DARE program statistically did not do well in schools. So there really isn't any mechanism that's standardized right now for schools. It takes people in individual communities that, want to be involved to get involved, because the school system, the Board of Education, doesn't do what they could be doing to help kids with this and with, the issues that we've had in COVID. I've been around this a long time, and COVID just contaminated kids' lives because they were isolated, and adults. I mean, all of a sudden you stop, there's no socialization, you're not, pissing and moaning to groups. I mean, there's even a study that was done years ago. They call it choir practice in law enforcement, first responders, that when they were working that standard 8-hour day, 5 days a week, they would go to the bar and they would kind of do a dump. And even though they were drinking, they had a chance to kind of, deal with some of their underlying issues. And then when they changed to a 10-hour day, 4 days a week, substance use disorders in and with first responders really escalated, and no one really talked about it. And it's an interesting outcome from that shift in how they schedule first responders to do their jobs. And that's a national piece of information that, comes out of Health and Human Services. So I'm glad that you're hearing you talk about education and prevention. It's really important. And I work at an IOP, and we work with first responders and veterans and anybody over 18, because we're not certified to treat children, minors. But I don't know an 18-year-old that doesn't have a younger sibling or a parent that has an issue. So we try to hopefully work with the whole family so we can maybe give them the tools that they need, because I believe this is a family disease, and you've got to have you've got somebody, it sounds like, you're the mother of your child, and that you have supporting you, and you look at the people that really grab it and get involved. It's because there's someone around them who's saying, I care about you, or how can I help, or what do you need support? I mean, one of my first messages was shut up and listen, and the second message was, we'll love you until you can love yourself. And I thought, who would say that to a stranger? and only in the fellowship, and I belong to Rotary, and I'm on a national board, and I've been involved with, all kinds of different associations. And this is the only fellowship that actually says that. And you made an interesting point. It was almost Freudian. You said, even if they didn't mean it, but they said it, because they're parroting what they heard from their mentor, being able to be in a place where someone's saying that to you. And more than likely they meant it, but still, when you're new and you're going, well, why would someone love me? I don't love me based on what I just put people through in my life that I can remember. Why would anyone love me, let alone like me? And I have people tell me all the time, and I hear it in my meetings, and I go to 7 meetings a week still, early in the morning on Zoom. Let me know if you want the link. Love to have you come join us. And I do it because I want to preserve the integrity of my recovery. And I have a wife who says nothing's more important to her than my sobriety. But it's interesting, we've been together a long time. Actually, in March, it'll be, I think, 43 years.
Wow.
You better figure it out. You better figure out that date, right? Dead on.
Well, no, I'm on Medicare, which means I can always pull the Sometimers card.
Okay, good.
You were talking about, how you guys talk to each other and how communication's important. I've got a new thing now. It's like in my head, when is she going to run out of words? It's like, stop it. And I just did a big interview, and I can share it with you, talking about how, God gave me 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I'm learning to listen in a way that I had not been able to do before. And sometimes what people need, especially those who are struggling in, they're jibber jabbering. And, I'm a firm believer that parents ask me, how do I know if my child's telling me the truth? And the answer is, if their lips are moving, they're probably lying, because lying and cheating and manipulating is such an important survival skill.
Yes.
That I like to see transferred into something else in recovery. And I'm a firm believer, you've got to meet people where they're at.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of our team are in recovery, and they're veterans. And I used to work with people coming out of jail and prison for 18 years. And then I started working with the people that arrested them. So I've had a chance to be at both spectrum. And the only initials I have at the end of my name are BHC, because I have to fill out forms like most people when you go to conferences. BHC is Behavioral Health Consultant. So I have no clinical certification, but I have a level of life experience that I bring, that I'm grandfathered in, if you will, so to speak. But you're right.
I was going to mention that, Scott. I was going to mention when he was going through his litmus of the letters that I think it is important for him to know there is success without those letters. And you're
we need it all. I mean, I've watched psychiatrists, addiction psychiatrists have loud in our meetings. I actually started a group called Society of Addiction Professionals, and we have different speakers come in every other month. And it's funny watching them, not funny, haha, but funny, what a shame, arguing with therapists, who have clinically gotten the skill sets they need to be able to deliver, curriculum in an environment of treatment that they don't do. They normally see people on a one-to-one, but arguing how they're not credentialed to do this, and then how they point at the psychiatrist saying, you really don't understand the therapeutic model, which is interesting. And I think there's a need for all of it.
Yeah, the thing is that the times are changing. We're making gains with people accepting addiction as a mental health disorder, disease of the brain. We're getting better coverage with insurance policies and the government. But that pushback now is they want more education. I mean, personally, I think I could go out and run groups and do individual and do all that now successfully. But the facilities, they need people that are certified. They need people. You got to have those letters behind your name to sign off on the charts, so to speak. So I'll do what it takes. Nothing I'm really learning in class is this mind-blowing, like, I didn't understand that. I see it, I've lived it. So a lot of that knowledge is like, some of my classmates, I helped tutor some of my classmates, like, how do you know this? I'm like, because I lived it. I know how my brain works. I know what I was thinking, so I know what they're thinking. And that's the beautiful thing. It's all the meetings go to, all the times I've spoken, no matter the walk of life, they're always like, oh my God, that's me. I used to go to this awesome meeting in Rhode Island on a Friday night, and it was a huge meeting, and they would have a dual speaker meeting once a month. And they would find two polar opposite life people. And one Friday night, there was like a Korean War veteran old Italian white guy, and a drag queen was the other speaker. An African-American drag queen. Polar opposite personality people. But their story was exactly the same. At its core, their story was the same. And everyone in the room walked out like, it doesn't matter, we are all one. In this room, we are all just a bunch of fucking addicts that need help. And it's that thing that I think Gabriel Mattei always says, that the opposite of addiction is connection. And I truly believe that making connection, the fellowship, like you said, is so important in treating addiction. And creating that community and that understanding is the best part of my job, really.
So Scott, before we end it and we go into your number, giving out your phone number and stuff, you want to ask him your magic question? The one question you love to ask. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. No, I just was thinking about which one you're talking about. Fred always gives me a hard time. So the question I like to ask, because sometimes we don't cover what we need to cover. What question have we not asked you, Jeff, that we should?
Well, that's a good question.
I love it, Scott. The record is 13 seconds to answer.
And tell the truth.
Here's the one question I think is important is, if I was you, I'd ask me, what do you see coming down the line that's going to become a huge problem if we don't tackle it now?
Go ahead. Answer your question.
Kratom and gambling. Kids today, the DraftKings, the gambling on the phones, the gaming disorders, and then that's one thing, because that hooks them at a very young age. You know, when Kyle was in high school, there was so many kids getting in serious trouble with stealing their parents' credit cards and stuff. And that only gets worse as you get older, because, as we know, addiction progresses. It doesn't get better. And the gas station and smoke shop, these herbal, it's safe, it's herbal, it's all natural. I'm seeing more and more kids, more and more young people coming in with kratom, and even with the legal marijuana, high potent edibles and high potency strains of flower and stuff. It's so much more getting a hold of this younger generation, and they think it's safe because it's natural.
You know, it's Groundhog Day today. And I was at my meeting this morning. We were talking about Groundhog Day. And what's interesting about your point is, California legalized marijuana years ago. And when I was smoking marijuana, it had like 9% THC. Now it's north of 90%. So to your point, here we are. These new things are coming out, getting to kids younger. And it's like we don't have anything in place yet. We have families who have lost loved ones who are out there individually, and they're not even connected or united. And we need more of that. And, the federal government seems to be making money somehow, or the power brokers and the lobbyists just keep them at bay. Because if we don't start treating this like we did with COVID, real-time data, information going, county to county, community to community, you're right. I mean, how old are you now, Jeff?
52.
Okay. So I'm 71. I'll be 72 this month. So we're about, when you get to be my age, if we have not done what you've described, what we need to do, we're going to be sitting here, 15% of the country has an addiction issue. It could be climbing up. It is climbing up. And then you look at mental health and all the other underlying untreated traumas. I mean, and PTSD impacts the family even quicker than addiction does, untreated. So we have the information, but the leadership is not there yet on a national level.
Yeah, and a lot of it is understanding too. It's like I'm standing around in the hallway at lunch talking to the senior clinicians that all the letters after their name, people that I look up to, and clients coming in there talking about this new client and like, what's kratom? And I'm explaining it because I know a holistic doctor that has used it to help people come off opioids and stuff like that. And I said, basically, it's herbal Percocet, and it's just as habit forming. It triggers the same sensors in the brain, and it's the new thing because you can buy it at a gas station for $10, and kids can buy it. They're supposed to be checking ages, but they don't. And I'm seeing clinicians at just about every place I've worked and volunteered and talking to people in the rooms. They've never heard of it. And of course, it's America, so they treat it like anything else. They hear about it now. They just put the ban on it, and there's a big ban, but it's still in every gas station. It's still there. They just rename it, and you're just going to drive them into actual drugs. You're just going to drive them because they're still want that feeling. They're still chasing that high. So it's like, well, I'm not getting it here, and I know I can get. I know what a Percocet is, so I can get it from there too. It's a lot harder, and then that all the crime and everything else, the lying, stealing, and manipulation follows. it's just starting to show up as a blip on the radar right now, and I'm trying to preach about it, and it's rare when I come across someone in this field that knows what that is now.
Yeah, it's definitely it's there and it's growing. It's changing names. It's doing that. But this is the same. Ironically, me and Scott would love to end our show in the sense of forever, but we know we're never going to be able to do that. The addiction, there's always something new. We could talk for hours, Scott and I, about one singular drug and have offshoots of everything. It's just, it's endless, and we know that. We're aware. But yeah, listen, I want to thank you because I think your story is important. I think you're important, and I know you like to hear that. So I'm going to give it to you. But I do think you're important. You're somebody I did like and enjoy in my life, and you were very good to me. And I'm glad I saw the article, and I'm glad I reached out to you. So thank you for joining us.
I'm so glad you reached out too, and it has spiraled. A lot of people have reached out to me, and even on one-on-one personal ways, someone just reached out and they saw the article and reached out because they're struggling and need some help, and they don't know where to go. They don't know what to do, and so that's one of those things. It's like I was hesitant. I hate to put myself out. Like I was a little nervous coming on today because I hate being the center of attention. It's not my natural.
Don't worry, Scott loves it. Scott loves it, so don't worry. He's the center always.
But it was worth it. The article, the coming on here, if one person hears something I said and it resonates with them and they reach out, and if not to me, to someone else, going that, just by me saying no one is hopeless and everyone matters, if someone gets that message today, I'm going to sleep well tonight.
Well, now you get the one good thing is you get a new phone number to add, because Scott's going to give you his phone number right now, along with everyone else. Now. What's your number, Scott?
This year, I'd like to have people call and text me more frequently and reach me at 619-993-2738. That's 619-993-2738. Call or text me, go online. My name's here. Google me, and let's figure out a way to make things better and help save lives.
Excellent. Excellent job, Scott H. Silverman. Thank you. And listen, I think it's important, like anything. Anytime we have somebody like Jeff on, it lessens that stigma of some sort, because it is difficult of men of our age groups, especially. We've been, just like he was talking about the old New England issue of just go back to work, you're fine, suck it up, smile, all that stuff. We've been taught that for far too long. And like you often say, Scott, I need help is the 3 hardest words in the English language.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. Still difficult for me. And I've been doing this with you now for 6 years. I still don't want to ask for help on certain things. And I'm not talking addiction wise, because I got a free pass with you. You don't even charge me if I needed that at this point. But, I think it's important. And I think it breaks down some barriers here and there, at least people in Jeff's circle. I already know William has already asked me when this is going to be on, so he's going to watch it and stuff. So that's good. So maybe these younger generation will help share this to see that, yeah, you could be a good guy. Yeah, you could be a great father. You could be a great husband. You could still be an addict. You could still get in trouble. You could still die. You could still die from doing drugs. No matter who you are, how much money's in your wallet, the drugs will eventually win. You're never going to beat them. So I want to thank you. This is your crisis coach. That's Jeff Givner, our guest. Thank you very much for joining us with Scott H. Silverman, myself, Fred Carroll. And if nobody has told you they love you today, we love you, and we will see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to Your Crisis Coach with Scott H. Silverman and Fred Carroll. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, be smart,